Hi everyone. One of the things I want to talk about today, just before my students have their midterm exam, is the idea of assertions. And you'll find the assertions listed in ASA 315, in the explanatory material paragraph A111. So let's start with first listing what the different assertions are for transactions. Let me just make a little table here. All right, so for transactions and events, we're looking for a number of different assertions. Occurrence, accuracy, completeness, cutoff, and classification. So occurrence is, did our transactions really happen? So this is about, are they real? Accuracy is about, are things recorded at the correct dollar amount? My sales, my purchases. My completeness is about having all my transactions. Cutoff is all about having things in the correct period. And classification is, are we using the correct accounts? So when I'm debiting and crediting, I'm using the correct accounts from my chart of accounts. So that's transactions. Then I've also got balances. All right, and so my balances applies specifically to my balance sheet items. So my balance sheet items are assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. My transactions, of course, are my revenues and my expenses. Now, I'm going to talk about the assertions that are similar first. So the first assertion we're going to talk about for balances is similar to the idea of, did our transactions really happen? And I'm going to ask, are my assets, liabilities, and owner's equity real? Do they, and we're going to use the term exist. So we have the assertion of existence. All right, are they real? Can we find them? Can we see them? Can we touch them? We also have an assertion that's similar to accuracy, and that assertion is called valuation and allocation. All right, so valuation is also about the dollars. But we use the term valuation because for an asset, a liability, or an owner's equity, it's not as simple as the purchase price or the selling price of a good, like we use for accuracy of transactions. Typically, it's a lot more complicated. So the valuation of a good will include, for example, an asset, the purchase price of a fixed asset, any installation costs, any setup costs, any testing. So it's a little bit more complicated, so that's why we say we calculate the value rather than checking that the amount of the transaction is accurate. Allocation is actually similar in nature to classification, but it's about, are things recorded as the correct type? So the biggest or the best example I can say there are our assets current or non-current? Are our liabilities current or non-current? We also have the completeness assertion. And completeness is exactly the same. Have I recorded all of my assets, my liabilities, and my owner's equity? All right. And then we have some that are completely different. Rights and obligations. Do I have a right to all of my assets? And do I have an obligation to record my liabilities? All right. So do I own or control those assets? Did I incur some expense to owe those parties money? So you notice that some of them are similar. Occurrence and existence. Right? Is it real? Did it happen? The reason I use different terminology is that I cannot say, did an asset occur? I can say, did a sale exist? But what the correct grammatical use is, did that revenue or that sale really did occur or happen? I use accuracy and valuation. Those two are similar because it's all about the dollar value of the account. Completeness is exactly the same. Am I recording all of my sales, all of my assets, liabilities, owners, equity? But the ones that we have are different are cutoff, classification, and rights and obligations. Now, over all of these, we also have our presentation and disclosure assertions. And those presentation and disclosure assertions do have some carryover items. All right. So, for example, occurrence is also a presentation and disclosure assertion. Rights and obligations is a presentation and disclosure assertion. Completeness is a presentation and disclosure assertion. Completeness is a presentation and disclosure assertion. And then we have accuracy and valuation, also presentation and disclosure assertions. The only extra assertions we have because of presentation and disclosure, classification as well. The only extra one, so you notice a lot of these carry over, is the assertion around understandability. And our understandability assertion is making sure that information that's presented in our financial statements are understandable by the users. But our presentation and disclosure assertions really focus on making sure everything is recorded, reported, and disclosed in accordance with our AASBs. So I hope that information helps clear up any confusions that you might have about assertions. Remember, they're actually quite similar. So if you're trying to figure out which assertion to use, first figure out, am I looking at transactions or balances? And then you'll be able to narrow it down to the right assertion.